Welcome, Sylvia.
Hi, Alina. So good to see you again. Just saw you yesterday or the day before yesterday for your amazing book launch party again.
Thank you. Yeah, in London, being able to have a hug, that always makes a big difference to the energy, for sure. So, but thank you for joining us, I was going to say, to everybody else who is live or who is joining us later. And I think that's just for us, we just had this idea on the cuff almost to have a conversation about Artemis, which is in our 3rd edition this year, and it's been a very successful program at Adapter. And we've had a few questions, I think, from some of the clients, potential clients, or curious people. And we said that's the easiest thing for us to do is to have a conversation live, and we can answer as many questions as we can. And if we don't, then people can reach out to us for more. So why don't you just, maybe introduce the audience to what program Artemis is and what we've been doing with it?
Yes. So maybe also like our why. We've been in our corporate lives, we've been participating in many leadership programs. We have co-led, given leadership trainings, and we felt that there is kind of a space, a gap where experience want to learn like beyond the tools. Program Artemis also offers tools, but mostly it works on mindset and on like 3 core elements of great leadership, which is how do we manage our energy? Because that's what we keep hearing if we know ourselves. And we just had a conversation about how it is important, like when we have to rush from one thing to the other, that we keep our energy gathered and that we have the balance. And so the energy, then the power. What is power really? And how do we understand power in today's very complex and fast-moving world in the way that we actually create outcomes that we want to create and do not end up simply controlling something, but we actually do not create the outcomes that we would like to create. And then the 3rd part of Artemis is voice, because it's great to have power and status and like the capacity to do something, but when our leadership voice, whether it is voice in terms of leadership presence in the corporate space or our physical voice, like being heard, when they are not strong enough, our leadership power is not that strong enough. So voice in terms of a vehicle for our energy and power. So, you remember we figured out how to create this kind of program, and it's very much also linked to the book that I've written, Who's in Charge, where I work on energy, power, voice, and legacy also. Yes, and we wanted to offer this like different leadership program, which goes slightly beyond what is normally offered. And yeah, I think our experience so far has been great. Participants have really appreciated what they got out of it.
Definitely. And I think what you and I definitely share and we've got in common is this passion to do something different, and I sort of call it leadership with a difference. And yes, and one of the other things that we have decided to experiment with is also we're going to do a masterclass in some of these modules, which are the energy and the voice, for half a day in London, and we can maybe mention that later as part of it. So it's the experimentation part, which has been a big pillar of what we've been doing together in terms of the collaboration. But I think for today we are going to dive a little bit more into the energy, just to give people a little sense of what that is, and the voice. I think that would be nice. Yeah, to sort of do that. And I think, the energy is such a big subject. It is interesting. You're right. We before we went on camera, we were talking about the need for us to sort of manage our own energy and not disperse it, because we're like everybody else at the moment. There's so much going on internally and externally, and how do we bring that energy back? And a lot of it is, the concept like embodiment, or making sure we are in our body. So my question to you is, in which way is the body really important to managing our energy?
Yeah, I think there are 3 ways, and we cover part of them in Artemis, the main program. and part we can actually cover in this masterclass and in the first in-person session of Artemis, because we get together so we can actually be there physically with our body. So the part we can learn about and understand is, yes, our physical energy is like what we eat, how we sleep, how much and how we move. That has a lot to do with how much energy we have available. If I don't look after my body in terms of nourishment and physical exercise and sleep, I don't have the energy. So it's a foundation. That's knowledge and then application. But what we can experience and practice, and what we will also do at the masterclass, is first of all using the body as, I call it, emotions gauge. So a sensor. Because everything that I feel, like the emotions that I feel them only because I have a body. So I feel them essentially in my body. And many of our clients, they're not aware of that. So they what emotions do I have, and they go here, whereas they should go first in the body and feel what it is, and then we can have a conclusion what kind of emotions that could be. But by being connected to our body, feeling the emotion, we are more clear about what is going on, what am I actually feeling, and therefore what kind of response is the most adequate one. And then the body is also a tool for managing our emotions, because when I, for instance, if I get very stressed in a situation, I can bring my energy down. One simple trick that I always teach my clients is just to feel the feet, to go into the feet with my awareness, which brings the energy from up here down, and then I feel more calm, or using the breath. So in the body, breathing, which calms down. And then there are embodiment exercises that are a bit more sophisticated, but there's such simple things we can do to use our body to have more energy.
Yes, and actually, I think for me, what was, as we were talking, what came up to, how do you do that, Sylvia? In a fun way. And I know you are a dancer. I know you for that. But how would you? Because people may just stay in their heads and think, yeah, that's nice for you, Alina and Sylvia, to tell us. But how? They're sort of getting into the head of the how.
Yeah.
What would be a fun way to do it?
Yeah, dance, for instance, is a fun way. And I mean, I have a workshop that I sometimes offer to leadership teams who are daring, which I call Dare to Dance, which is, of course, not dancing neither like on the stage nor like in the discotheque, but it's to use the simple tools that dancers would use to get more into our bodies. And that is very playful. Actually, it's about inhabiting our bodies. So when we move, we get more to inhabit our bodies. When we are only talking, like we are talking here, and we inhabit our bodies less. So it's through movement and through conscious movement that we get to, and using breath also, that we get more into our bodies. And most embodiment practices, I mean, it's a big word, and it's has also very much entered into the corporate space to use embodiment for coaching. And I mean, I'm using it, and actually it's really about consciously using our body. It's doing very simple things and becoming more aware, and therefore more present in our body. That's all there is to it. So there's no mystery. It's very, very simple. And it's actually all easy. It's nothing that people can't do. You don't have to be very athletic to do these things.
Yes, and it's easy. I mean, I suppose it's easier. I would say just dancing. I know that for me is just stop and do something playful. Just shake your body.
Yeah.
Just literally just give a lot of shakes to it, and dancing is more fun. And the corporate, I suppose the corporate audience will say, yeah, again, it's easy for you, Sylvia and Alina. You just you do it in your home office, but I'm just stuck here in my corner office. How do I do that? And again, I mean, it's that non-conventional, non-conforming way that I talk about in my own book. I'm sure there are places that we can hide a little bit to shake and to dance.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to the bathroom. There's normally a little space. Or we go outside for a moment where we don't have to dance, but it's just the movement. Or like we can also shake out
the stretch. Yeah.
Or stretch, which is not an extreme movement where people will wonder, oh my God, what is happening to this person? Yes. And it's also like you speak about fun by daring to make bigger movements.
Hmm.
Also, therefore, more playfully owning our body rather than being like just constricted in the what am I allowed to do? Like, how am I allowed to move as a corporate citizen, so to speak? And yes, I mean, I give a training where after each lunch break, it's actually a corporate trainer who comes in, but our clients, they move then, and they are not shy to do this in front of each other in their office dresses, and it gives so much energy for the last part of the day.
Yeah, and I suppose it's they've been given permission to do it if there is, you know, they have been given a special space and a special time to do it. But yeah, and I mean, in my own book, I also, in this sort of the audacity spectrum, I talk about in the attunement, how important it is to attune your body, you know, to your mind, and again, head to heart and to gut. And a lot of it is through movement. But why don't we just maybe, again, because it's still part of the energy and how we manage the energy. And what about mindfulness? I mean, we hear a lot about that as another tool for managing stress and also for being resilient.
Yeah.
What about that?
I mean, that is much more established already in the
Mm-hmm.
corporate world. Some companies are still a bit more careful, but I mean, companies like McKinsey and Google, they're using mindfulness, and it's really scientifically proven that doing mindfulness practice regularly helps us to manage stress better. Actually, the scientific part is that it has an impact on our amygdala, this little thing in the brain that creates the stress responses. And research has shown that people who meditate or use mindfulness regularly, that response calms down. So there can be an explosion next to the meditator. They will not jump. They will remain calm. And my own experience is, having used mindfulness for many years, is that I am indeed more able to remain calm when everyone is running around, or also remain neutral when there is a behavior that I could get hooked up on, but I don't have to.
Yes, it's about that reaction.
Yeah, and how about you? What has been also like in your experience, like leaving the corporate world and establishing yourself as a coach and serving clients? What is your experience using mindfulness?
Well, I mean, it made a huge difference for me to create that pause, you
Mm,
know, for me. And I read it somewhere recently, this definition, you know, the resilience is not endurance, which a lot of people
mm,
associate, but it's actually how we recharge.
yes.
It's not how we endure. And therefore, I mean, that's been one of my biggest challenges, is how do I create the space? How
Mm,
do I just pause? How do I slow down rather than be in this sort of what we call the high performance rat race?
yeah.
And it's as important to, so the mindfulness for me, I've got a practice of meditation, you know, and it's a very consistent practice every morning, and sometimes if I can, I will do it in the evening. And again, for me, I think the challenge personally is to stop more often during the day
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
do that sort of playful. I think that's definitely something that's work in progress for me.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I have learned in stress management and mindfulness, that we definitely, as human beings, we do not function like machines that can go on and on and on and on. We function in a cyclical way, so
Hmm.
like waves. So we need that pause, because we are not made to go on 10 hours a day. It's just not the way that we function. So if we take those pauses, we will be resilient, as you say. And if we try to steam on until the end of the day, or for 8 weeks in a row, it's simply not how we operate as human beings. So we are not using our capacities to the best.
Yes, and I think you and and I mean, we use it in Artemis and in some of the other programs, but it's a very simple sort of 4 quadrants of the energy, which is sort of Tony Schwartz model, with high
Yeah.
performance, which is high energy and positive, but you also need lower energy
Mhm.
and positive, which is the renewal, and then avoiding the burnout.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, again, as you said, stress is good in short pieces, in short spells, and then again, is their concept of small little sprints rather than a marathon. So you just have to stop and then recharge. But I'm curious, I'm sort of aware of the time as well. I'd love to explore a little bit this concept of emotions, because,
Yeah.
emotions are energy in motions. And a lot of our work that we do, especially under the umbrella of the emotional intelligence, is very much how do you manage emotions? And you just mentioned that, when we're under a lot of stress, it's more likely that we will be sort of triggered. So
Yeah.
what is the role of emotions in leadership? And why is it useful to manage those
Yeah.
emotions?
It's what I always find fascinating is when leaders tell us, yeah, but emotions. Like if I'm a good leader, I leave the emotions at the door. And I mean, we both know that that just doesn't work because the emotions are there. So we can't suppress them because they will seep through and people will feel them. And it's just more irritating than being able to manage them so that they are clearer. They come out in a constructive way. And I always think of this story about the man and the horse. I don't know whether you know that. It's such a good story to understand the need for managing our emotions. So it's a Chinese story of a farmer who meets a rich man who is on the horse, and the rich man on the horse says, like, farmer, tell me. No, it's the other one. The farmer says, "Oh man, where are you going with your horse?" And the farmer's curious, and the rich man says, "I don't know. Ask my horse." And it's the same with our emotions. I'm riding my emotions. I don't know. I mean, I know many people who say, well, it's just my emotions. I have had an outbreak. I'm angry. I can't help it. And then we are being ridden. We are being taken away by our emotions. And while that is normal in the immediate moment, so like if there is, you're crossing the street, there is a lorry coming, uh, you have naturally a fright, and that's a healthy reaction so that you pull back. But if you maintain that state of arousal for more than 10 seconds, then you're getting into a loop, which is actually what you can manage. And managing, again, is not suppressing, it is observing, being aware, and being able to choose, or being able to create that gap that you also mentioned. And that is so darn important in leadership, because if we are being like carried away by our emotion source, then we are not a choice. We are not powerful, because something will be thrown at us and we will react automatically rather than being a choice. What is the situation? What does it require? What is my intention? What outcome do I want to create? So when we are able to manage the emotions, we have them, we feel them, but we can say, okay, I'm angry, or I'm upset, or I'm confused.
Mm.
What does the situation demand of me now? Confused, it could be I'm going to ask for information because I don't know. It could also be, actually, right now my team needs me to give clarity, so I'm not going to say I don't know. In this situation, I have to create basic clarity. So it's hugely important.
Yes, and you just mentioned that, Sylvia, and what came to me, I think in my experience, the biggest challenge is naming those emotions, because you've already named a few. I'm sort of irritated and I'm confused. And most people, in my experience, they don't have the emotional language. That's one of the things that we also, mentioned. I mean, I always say to my clients, you need to learn your emotions in the way that you've learned your timetable. And I just sort of, I think you've got the same, is the emotion will. I mean, I use a table in the book, but it's really quite important to know what it is. It's 50%. There is science and research that if we name the emotion, we sort of, immediately, it just creates that for our nervous system. It just creates a pause, so we can then manage it, deal it, acknowledge it.
You know why? Why that happens? Because when we name them, we use our prefrontal cortex again, and then this amygdala hijack stops. So what happens when we are like going, like reacting emotionally, is that our emotional brain takes over, because that's what we needed to do in like 10,000 years ago to run away from the saber-toothed tiger. We needed our emotional brain to take over and not think anymore. But today, that's often not what helps. So we need to switch our thinking brain back on again. And so by naming, we go back into the thinking brain because it's in the language center.
Yes, and I think again the research says the emotional brain is much more powerful to use that than the rational brain.
Yeah.
And most people think, I always ask that question in my workshops. Who here thinks they make decisions with their rational brain, and then I ask them to think again, because it's not. We are making it's the emotional brain, and of course then the rational brain will take over. And knowing that it's really important. And yeah, there is a lot of research actually, again, talking about the acknowledgement. It's only about 30 or to 35% of people who can name the emotion in the moment, which means that if we are then making decisions based on the wrong emotion, and it becomes sort of more irrational and the rest of it. So it's really, it is important to master that emotional language and to master the way of responding, not reacting. That it's a very simple tool, but it's critical, really.
Yeah, because many of us can also have these go-to emotions. So some people can only get angry, they can't get confused or sad, and some people only can get sad or helpless, etc. And actually, I would challenge a sad person, like someone who always gets into sad or helplessness, like maybe you're angry. Like feel deeper what is really your emotion. And someone who's always angry, maybe they're afraid. And it could be more helpful than to say, oh my God, I'm scared right now. And that can create better communication and more appropriate reactions than using the default mode.
Yes, and actually for me, I love to reframe. It's another tool for me. It's reframing. And when you just said I'm angry, for me sometimes it's like that's maybe you're passionate. Yeah. So you just allow the anger to just be a vehicle for maybe your passion. There is something that you are so passionate about that you are showing it through anger. So it's just acknowledging what is it. It's usually a value that's been what I call violated when we get angry. But again, we're not going to have time to go a lot into those sort of emotion spirals. For me, anger has got a better energy than what we call at the bottom of the spiral, which is apathy or powerlessness. Yeah. It's better to have some of that energy because at least you get it out and you solve it rather than totally be in avoidance, which is a much more difficult emotion.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing I suppose I'd love to go and explore the voice, but another big concept I think that it's really useful for people to acknowledge is this concept of contagion. How contagious the emotions are and how much science there is to it. And as a leader, you really need to be aware that you have responsibility in the way you spread those emotions. They spread like viruses. And I always say, for the leaders, we all have bad days, but it's important to voice it. So then we can then maybe talk about voice, because if you are in a bad mood and you are angry, or the opposite, you had a bad day and you lock yourself into the office, it's very difficult for the rest of the people around you to know how to respond, and so just expressing and saying, I'm at the moment, I need some space. I've had a bad time. That's why I just need, I'm angry, but I'm going to be okay in 10 minutes time, or, I just need the time in my office. So people don't take it personally. Exactly. So I'd love to go into the voice, because that's obviously, something that you feel very passionate about. So how does the voice get impacted then under stress?
Well, I know it very much as a singer, because as a singer, when you're on stage, you're stressed, there is pressure. And then sometimes, like, the first notes can be a bit constricted. And then you relax and then it opens up again. And that, of course, the same happens everywhere where we are. I have had it also sometimes after a long day at the office, when I get really tired, that my voice became a bit more flat, or that I had to clear my voice more often, because it was the tiredness. So my muscular system is no longer open. It's a question of posture, and so it's impacted by tiredness and stress. So stress means that the muscles here at the jaw muscles that are like real stress monkeys, and also the throat, they can constrict, and then our voice doesn't have space anymore. And it's not really helpful, no, especially in leadership positions, because when our voice gets flat or squeaky, people either they don't really like to listen to us because it's not so pleasant, and it doesn't inspire so much trust, because we like to follow people more who seem to have more spaciousness in their bodies, or grounded. So they have also, naturally we would assume then, oh, they have an open voice because they're more grounded. And so it's to our disadvantage when we can't manage our voice when under stress. And
So, yeah, I'm sort of curious again. I think with that, how can, again, for the curious listeners, what can we do to build that stronger, that more confidence voice so people trust us?
so I get back really to embodiment and breath, because these are the foundations. As a singer, we do a lot of breathing exercises also, and like using like our body here to see like how wide the ribs can open, and also feeling the feet, all the things that we would do in embodiment, they are helpful. And if you take a voice coach, for instance, you would do such exercises without having to become a singer. It's also great, actually, if you like play and fun, to do some acting training, just for fun, not to become an actor, but just as a pastime. I mean, instead of playing a sport or an instrument, and it's nice also socially, because you meet people, to do acting training, because there also you will be able to do some voice work. So it's being in the body, and being able to feel the breath, use the breath, and getting more familiar with these muscles. So I also sometimes get a tight voice, and I'm more able to do than I was previously, to go, oh, I'm getting a tight voice. How can I create some space here? So I can reverse what is simply my body is doing, because maybe I'm getting tired or I'm nervous about something. And that's also something that I sometimes do with my clients, and what we will do also at the masterclass, to give simple tools and tips how to basically self-help when there's a situation. Oh my God, I'm too nervous. I see that my voice is tightening up. What can I do? And it's fun.
Yes, it's fun. And actually, I was saying, before anybody thinks about going and working, with an acting class, which is great. I suppose, I still haven't done improv. I think that scares the hell out of me, but maybe one day. But how would they, I mean, the first thing would be to, as you said, as part of Artemis, they could also do the masterclass, which is on the 12th of November in London. We're doing it in sort of central London. We're doing it between 2 and 5 o'clock. It's a Tuesday, it's an afternoon, and it's a lot of fun. It's doing some of those voice exercises, the mindfulness, the breath work, and as well as some of the tools and the playfulness. But yes, and the Artemis, again, I think we didn't mention, so it's good to sort of mention it at the end. It's a longer program, so we've got this masterclass, which is half a day, which it's a great introduction to some of this work, and it's a sort of deep dive, but it doesn't go as much in depth as the Artemis will do over 4 months, where we do that, but we do virtual 6 different modules every 3 weeks. It's a wonderful community, and then we celebrate with another of these workshops at the end in March in London. Is there anything else? I think, have I missed anything? I mean, to tell the audience about the fun, the funness of the day, the playfulness of the day.
Well, the playfulness of the day, I think, is it lies in really covering these 3 aspects of energy management, emotions, and voice in the physical space. Because we can read about this, we can do online courses about this, but the fun here will be that we will really be meeting and exploring things, trying things out in a safe space, in a fun space, and that probably will make you more curious about what you can actually do in these areas, but also already give you something in that moment, in those 3 hours. So I am so super excited that we're doing this. It's actually the first time that we're doing that kind of work. Also in Artemis, it's a new, I think every time that we do Artemis, we add a new piece. And I'm really thrilled that we're adding this piece this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fabulous. No, I'm very, very excited indeed. And I think it's, if anybody is more curious, they can reach out to us. We've got some information on the website, on the Adapter website. Also, we've had people who have been through these programs for the first 2 times. So I'm sure, again, we've got some testimonial. Anybody who's got that curiosity, we can feed more into it. But I think we're at time.
Yes.
And thank you so much, Sylvia, for spending, choosing to spend the energy here with me and with whoever will listen to us.
Well, thank you, Alina, and thank you everyone who's been here or watching afterwards. It's always so good to share this kind of work.
Thank you. And then, I think it's your book is coming out soon, and that will also have quite a lot of these concepts in. So really looking forward to that too, very soon. So thank you everybody, and then do get in touch, if you want to find out more. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.